just like honey, sweet to taste on burning lips. Warm and live beneath the water, feeling icy fingertips. Soothing nectar to my body, wash the image from my eyes. Dirty streets of hungry people, drink the water, dry your eyes. First one look at the reflections, listen to the music made. Drinking water's ease the mind, thoughts of you begin to fade.
The nation is under siege. The nation is under siege.
Good evening, everybody. This is Divided We Stand. If you're unfamiliar with this channel, we are Divided We Stand on YouTube and on Facebook. We are not a monetized channel. All we ask is that you either subscribe or become a member of our group. We don't want your money. It's also a group that found negotiating with the Republican Party as an untenable situation until they change. We thought that perhaps this channel and this group would probably survive maybe a year or two, and then our problem would be over with. Well, look at us now. Looks like we're going to be going 8 years. All right. Tonight's a special night, folks, and we're glad that you can join us. We also ask that you would share this out, if you would. That's all we ask. Please share it out. Get as many members as possible. We're not looking for money. We're looking for members because we believe that what we're doing is the right thing to do. And right now, it's pretty much the only thing at this moment. We're going to help try to process what we need to do given that horrendous election. We also have two very special guests tonight. We have Vegematic, otherwise known as Chris, but usually known as Vegematic from London, Ontario, home of the Jones brothers in the NFL. One of them is for the Philadelphia Eagles. We also have Ryan Velez from Kentucky. Yes, indeed. And of course, our Dave Price, my co-host from Arlington, Virginia. Before I introduce my good friends and and guests. Today I was thinking about the one person.
Stop. I never like it because you were thinking, but go ahead, I'll listen.
Okay. Don't listen to the Wizard of Oz behind me. Okay. Well, I always thought if there was one person, one American, who really understood the political system in the United States as a liberal, and that would be Gore Vidal. We, of course, know his father was a senator, and he lived in exile for many years in France. But his big problem, as far as I can remember, and I do have a quote here I'd like to read a few lines from, is about the middle class. And we've all been asking ourselves, audio is questionable. Let's, before I continue, just double check everything. Check 1, 2. I don't see any problems here. If you're out there and you're having a problem hearing us, please send a message in the chat before I continue.
Now, if Ryan or Veg are speaking and you can't hear them, that is a real problem. If Brian is speaking, it's not really worth getting upset about because Oh, I'm sorry, Brian, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, anyway, let's continue. It does sound a little loud here on my end, so we'll see what's happening. I don't know. But back to Gore Vidal. So Gore Vidal was always suspicious of, I'll move this away then. He was always suspicious of the middle class. I read, where the true is worshipped, truth is alien. But then to be middle class is to be, by definition, frightened of losing one's place. Traditionally, the virtuous member of the middle class is encouraged to cultivate sincerity and its twin, hypocrisy. This sort of harsh truth-telling that one gets Aristophanes say is not possible in a highly organized zoo like the United States, where the best cuts are flung to those who never question the zoo's management. And this rings to me because everybody is asking, how the hell could he have won? How the hell did we have a change of 15 million votes? Biden had 81 million. Harris had 67. Okay.
That's 14 million, Brian.
Okay, 14, 15. We're not going to argue the point. But the point is,
yes, we are.
It's a massive shift. And that shift has come after a January 6th coup, a conviction, a felony, and standing trial in 3 other cases. You ask yourself, how could this happen? The economy's fine. Unemployment's low. That's what we're going to talk about today, and more. And some of us are going to have rage. Some of us are going to be more composed. Some of us may use comedy, I don't know. Although it's not a very funny situation. But we're going to leave it to our guests tonight to solve. Because Gore Vidal's dead. But, he's here in spirit. So without any further ado, I'm going to shift to our multi-scene here with all 4 people. 3 guests, well, 2 guests and 2 co-hosts. First of all, good evening, Ryan and Veg.
Good to see you.
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
You too.
Wonderful
Dave.
to have you on. And of course, there's Dave Price from Washington, well, technically Arlington, Virginia. But Dave's got a lot of work ahead of himself for the next 4 years because he is our contact on the streets of Washington. If there's violence, if there's the military out there, if there's MAGA, we're putting Dave right out there to do what he's got to do. it's going to be a high point in his life in our show, but not tonight. Anyway, you heard what I said. Where do we begin? Anybody want to start?
Has anybody else been? Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, anyway, I've been hearing from maggots, and what surprises me is the level of ignorance. I've actually had people telling me that the reason Biden lost was because the hurricane relief money was all diverted to put migrants up in luxury hotels and buy them houses. So how do you respond to that? You can send them links. You can anything. It's just they do not believe anything other than what comes out of the orange man's pie hole. So I just don't know how to deal with this. And one fella actually told me that Trump was the peace candidate because he wouldn't supply Ukraine with weapons. And and I just said, well, you'll be happy then under him because you'll be living like Russians in Putin's Russia. So how do you fight back about the amount of information that's going on? I mean, how can you get through to these people with the truth, with facts? Because they don't understand facts. They're so brainwashed that it goes right in one ear and out the other, or they don't trust any sort of mainstream media unless it's Fox News or one of their podcasts or whatever, because they just believe everything's a lie except what Trump says. So I don't know. It's going to be a rough next few years, and I'm wondering if you're even going to be able to have another election after this, because he has certainly indicated that he is entitled to a third term because he was cheated out of it in 2020. So where do we go from here? I don't know. The same thing is going on here. The disinformation is rife. Our largest broadcasters have been bought by an American hedge fund run by right-wing U.S. billionaires. And the hatred of our prime minister is unbelievable right now. The poll numbers are way down, and they're showing this really extremist guy as being the next prime minister. And I see it happening all over the world, in Germany, in various parts of Europe. It's all moving to the right, and I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. I'm completely baffled by any sort of reasoning that these people have. I don't get it. Is that your perception, or am I just off the charts here? I don't know.
No, you're not. You're not. What I would say, you ask a question that we're all asking now, or have asked, or will ask. How can it takes many forms, but how can someone vote for Trump? And it's because, very simply, and I'm not sure of much of what I say, but I'm positive on this. They see, envision, hear, swallow a different reality than we do. Okay? And so, Veg, what I think is we can't do anything to change their mind. We shouldn't even waste our time doing that. And here's what may happen. Okay, and there were some encouraging signs, and we're not even a week in, right, to the election. I feel nothing for them. I'm not. Oh, I'm sorry it happened. One business I saw is laying off 900 workers in preparation for the tariffs, which haven't even been enacted yet. Another business did something like that. They called a meeting, and the workers raised their hands and said, "No, China will be paying that." They had no clue, no concept of what a tariff is. Okay, so did they vote in ignorance? Of course they did. But what may happen, and I have 2 points I want to make here before we turn it over to Ryan. what may happen is, I don't know that they're going to like everything that Trump has in store for them, right, or effects for them. So maybe some of his supporters, not his staunch supporters, but some will just say, "Oh, this is terrible. We made a mistake." We're not going to change their minds, but Trump's actions might. For example, in Project 2025, it's not disguised, but it's not a main thing. Pornography will be made illegal, pretty much, in the United States. Now, because I travel quite a bit in the South, and in the rural areas of the South, you only see three kinds of four, really. You see churches, all right? You see gun stores. You see dollar stores, and you see adult bookstores / porn stores. So there's a lot, there's a lot there. So my point is, as Trump hits them, or 2025 becomes they actually see the impacts of it. Some may come back to a form of sanity. So what I think, we have to figure out two groups. One is to get them back, and one is to get them. To get them back, why did so many people, Brian, when you said that, I mean, it's a tremendous drop. If I read the thing correctly, pretty much, if I read the election, it was Trump got relatively the same number of votes he did last time, relatively. And it was the missing votes, or the people who stayed home or whatever. So you have to see what, if we can find out why they did that. And there may actually be too many reasons to address. And the other is to figure out, how do you get people who don't vote, not only to vote, but to vote in a way that is sensible, not just to us, or not just to the community or the state or America, but indeed sensible to them. So many people, I believe, will, either by not voting or voting for the wrong party and the wrong person, to themselves the biggest disservice.
Okay.
But
and Ryan?
We have to wait on that.
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of what Dave and Chris just said. I was taking some notes over here so I don't forget things. But I'll tell you all what I'm doing. In short, I'm doing what I can, and that's all I can do. But to be a little more specific, it was asked a minute ago about how do we change how do we change the minds of MAGA people? I don't think that we can, without costing them something that they find, critical to their life. And I know what that is, and I think it's family. If you are related to a person that voted for Trump that you know for sure, disconnect from them. Stop talking to your family. The holidays are coming up. They're going to be forced to discuss it. It's easy for me to say this. I actually wrote a Facebook post about this earlier today. I actually disconnected from my family 10 years ago, and it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. It was a difficult decision, probably the hardest decision, but last Friday was the day where I'm just going to say, lost my sister, in that she told me that she voted for Trump, but for this entire period of time had been telling me she didn't vote for Trump, just the rest of the family did. So she had lied to me for years about this, and when I found that out, I immediately disconnected, and I will live the rest of my life without ever seeing her. And I know these people care about family, and at this point, we're looking at subjugation on a level that we haven't seen since pre-Civil War times. And the problem is now, you think about things like the Underground Railroad and things like that were really successful in helping slaves get away and stuff like that. They now have satellites that buzz around the planet. You can't really hide anything. It's going to be 20 million times harder to get away with things. And the guy with the most satellites is Elon Musk.
Right.
So here's what I think is going to happen. Disconnect completely from any family and friends that you can that we know supported Trump, and just don't explain yourself. Just block them on social media, block their phone numbers. If you have events with them, cancel your participation. All of that stuff. Just stop going. Show them what it's like. They're always saying, "Oh, you need to have the military guys. You need to have us. You need to have the plumbers. You need to have everybody." They always say we always need everybody, but they don't include gay people, straight people, black
Right.
women. They don't include anybody they don't like. So I think some of this is going to fix itself a little bit. Kind of the fuck around and find out theory. When they deport all the people, how much do you think?
If they can.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be absolutely insanity. And, I feel like the only thing that we can do, like as individuals in this situation, is something. I drew some interesting, or I remember Neil deGrasse Tyson said a quote that I saw a couple of weeks ago. He believes that the internet is going to be so full of AI and misinformation in the near future that essentially the only thing you can do is return to books. And I agree with that. And so I recommend anybody right now, before January 15th, or whenever, I think that's when Trump takes office, right? January 15th. Before that time, buy every banned book that you can think of that you're interested in. Buy books. Like, invest in books right now, even if you're not a reader. Like, I go online all day long and I see all kinds of stuff that I'm constantly like, is that real? I have no idea. Like, I saw this thing earlier today. Apparently a FEMA person asked or told all the FEMA people not to serve people with Trump signs, and everyone's buying into that. And it's like, you really believe that? Like come on. Like, that's total bullshit. All that is the Trump team trying to set up for the next natural disaster to be like, look what they did, so we're not helping the Democrats with all this money. What they want to do is take the full resources of the United States government, and they want to use it against their enemies, who now are basically registered Democrats and liberals and Republicans who did not vote for Trump. That's who it is. It's absolutely insane, So, that's what I think we do. I think we have to rip families apart. I'll conclude this monologue with, I've been reading Project 2025's stupid book or whatever, and if you read that, the number one thing, the most core tenet of it is family. They believe in the nuclear family, defined as a man, woman, and one or two kids, and that's it. And if you look up adoption statistics and divorce statistics, you will see that people on the MAGA side, the statistics look like them, with the exception of black women divorce the most. That was the only statistic that I saw that did not align with things like on the MAGA side. An example is if you're in the military, you're more likely to divorce. If you have a high school education and below, you're more likely to divorce. I also learned that the majority of children who are given up for adoption are white, which suggests that all these, we have all these white people in the MAGA movement trying to tell people what family is, and they're the ones giving up the most babies. And I'm just saying, I think it's hilarious. It's completely ridiculous.
Well, of course, that's what Gore Vidal said, though. They talk about sincerity, but there's also the twin. It's their hypocrisy.
Oh, that's what you mean. Oh, okay.
Right.
Oh, sure.
That's exactly what I mean.
For those that do not
Pornography
know,
is
I have autism.
biggest in the red
property.
states, right? They love that stuff. So,
Right.
the hypocrisy is there. But what I can't understand is that the Latino men voting for Trump. I mean, that boggles the imagination. Surely they have relatives that aren't, or even talking about ending birthright citizenship. I mean, that's kind of just taking somebody's citizenship away because their parents aren't legal. And I'm of the opinion that the whole migrant thing is just blown way out of proportion. And what's going to happen to these people when we don't have migrant workers to pick the crops and to do all the jobs that Americans just don't want to do. And economists have said this whole tariff program that Trump has come up with is going to be ultra disastrous for the country and disastrous for the world economy. I'm just too disgusted for words and baffled and upset. But I'm trying to stay away from news for a while. I can't even look at Trump anymore. If he comes on the television, I'm just like, no, I can't do it anymore. When I first saw the man, I guess it was an ad for the show The Apprentice that he used to be on. And my gut reaction is, this man, there's something really disturbing about this person. There's something that just rubbed me the wrong way, and I've never felt differently. But apparently a lot of people that voted for Biden the last time are blaming Biden for inflation. They're blaming... I had one guy telling me, oh, well, Biden's the worst president ever of all time, and I voted for him, and I really regret it now because he caused all this inflation. And they have no idea what's going on in the rest of the world. I mean, your inflation rate is not too bad. Housing is a problem. It's a problem here, too. It's a major problem here. But that is more because of corporations buying up single-family dwellings and turning them into rental places and driving up the prices so that it's pricing average workers right out of the real estate market. But everything sort of gets shifted to blame somebody. They're always looking for a scapegoat. What's the reason for it? And it's just that unless they're willing to listen to what's actually happening, or I think most Americans don't have a clue of anything that's going on outside of their country. And what's going on with their media is unbelievable. I mean, I've watched Fox News and just end up shaking my head. They tried to start a Fox North years ago in Canada, and they weren't allowed to call it news, so they didn't bother because it was obviously just propaganda. But now that's all changing up here too, and the shift to the right seems to happen on a regular basis. But this is extremism. This isn't just normal right-wing politics. It's something we haven't seen before. I haven't seen anything like it in my lifetime. And where are we heading with it?
None of us have in our lifetime. That's for sure. Now, Brian, I want to come back to something you said, and when Ryan was talking, and he was talking about putting people in camps, and you said if he can. Is that correct?
Right.
Now, what do you see stopping Donald Trump that's out there now that we know of?
I'll give you an analogy. In Bridgeton, or you used to live, Dave, the one thing the cops hate the most is having to answer a call for a domestic disturbance, because they don't want to get involved in it. And a lot of bad things happen when that occurs. So essentially, what we would have here is somebody's got to do it, whether he decides to have the military or he decides to have the National Guard. They have to be everywhere. And then everybody's... So what happens if he asks the local police to do it? I mean, that's an incredible number. What are even the people who support him? Could you imagine Trump or police having to go into that?
Okay, I'm just going to play devil's advocate for a moment, because the point you raise is germane. They can't be everywhere. It won't be everywhere. There'll be a target area, wherever that is, with already agreement. If it's the military with divisions that will go in, or if it's the police, they would go in. And you said, and you're certainly right, and I know it maybe better than you do, about police and domestics, because I covered police for a long time. But there's also a fact that if you're a Trumper and you believe the rhetoric, and a lot of them do, you're not really following him, although that's part of it. You want to get rid of this vermin. He called them vermin, correct? And I know of at least 142 people, and that's just that I know, in Bridgeton, who would agree with that verbal assessment. And a number of them are police officers. So, I mean, think about it, guys. If the President of the United States gives an order, you are supposed to follow it. Now, of course, the President is supposed to give you a realistic, reasonable, sane order. I think Veg, it was you talking about earlier. Sane washing. I mean, that's we could do 42 shows on that, because Trump is not sane. What he says is not sane, et cetera, et cetera. So, Brian, I hope. I don't mean you're right. I'm just wondering, and got to remember, he's bringing the brain trust. I bet you Steve Bannon's been thinking about this and nothing else, and Steve Miller's taking it from another way, and they already said, what is it? There's 3 promises supposedly coming out of D.C. Now, we don't know what Trump will do on the first day. He wants to begin the deportation plan on the first day. Now, whether he can do, he also wants to, he will pardon the patriots who toured Congress on January 6th. And there was a third thing, which was wasn't that major. So, I think, are there people who would rush and volunteer to be part of an informal vigilante army to march people from wherever they are back across Mexico? Yeah. So, we'll just have to see. Again, Trump also is, he's full of bluster. We got 4 feet of wall, and Mexico didn't pay for it. Maybe that's it, but and Veg, I'm sure it is harder for you simply because you're in another country to understand this country. There's no defense for it. Okay, there's no defense for it. It's fear, it's anger, it's hatred, it's please don't change, make it the way it was. I mean, that's where Make America Great comes. I always stop every person who has that. I stop them if I can, if they have the hat on or we're having a discussion. And my question to them is, okay, by that, say Make America Great, could you give me, and I can do that arrogantly. I try not to anymore. I said, could you give me specific? I said, could you tell me a time period when that definition fits with you? So, I'm confused. Would you tell me, when exactly? Because if you come across tough, well, this is to, I don't know if you and you and Ryan were listening, but Brian was doing an excellent job the other night, just tearing with truth down these just beyond conspiracy theories that were coming out. I rounded up a group of Trumpers in New Orleans, and it got nowhere because
I got booed.
Using logic.
I got booed.
Well, I actually led that booing, but that's beside the point.
Thanks.
No, but what happens is, the point is persistent. Logic infuriates them because I think in their hearts, maybe deep down, they're not as confident as they appear to be, but they know that we are the enemy, and that's 100%. We are the enemy. If you are not with them, you are the enemy. It would be interesting to chart how many ways we're the enemy. I'll do myself. Liberal, educated, that makes me an enemy. Northerner, urban liver, completely anti-religious, support abortion, believes that every man, woman has the right to decide.
So you'd be their main meal.
Yeah, I think we all would.
Yeah, that's what I think you're right. Now that gets into something else. They have a bunch of macho posturing people who would turn, and Brian always says this, the bully turns. They're good until they get punched in the nose. So here's the question. If that's when they're bullies, what do we have to punch them in the nose with? That doesn't bring us down. I'm not going to raise a weapon to them unless they're doing it to me. And no, that's just not going to happen. So it can't be that way.
But let me just, if I can interject, because Veg said something,
Sure.
which we've all kind of said, but I believe you said, he had a problem with the fact that they believe the lies. And Dave, you just mentioned how, they have a problem with logic. Brian, I know you agree with this. So we know that facts don't matter anymore. They don't matter in Russia, and now apparently they don't matter here. So being that facts don't matter, does marketing matter? I mean, we know that propaganda works with the right wing because it touches on these internal points that the MAGA people associate with the racist, the blah, 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 blah. Is there something we're doing wrong? Because we tend to think that somehow if I show them that 2 + 2 = 4, that all of a sudden they're going to want to do math. I think we have to think differently in our terms. How do we be truthful people and at the same time effectively market to this gooey brain that will accept the most absurd commentary?
Well,
I'll go quickly.
one thing that I think
You can't,
is,
and you can't reach them. Go ahead. Anybody, you can't reach them. It's not even worth thinking about. They have to
Yeah.
decide themselves. Nothing we could do.
Yeah, I think what we're doing is we are, at least in the States, we are reaping the benefits of 40 years of defunding education and doing everything we can to gut education. I have people that I work with who voted for Trump at this point, I'm pretty sure. And I'm in disbelief. I thought they were smarter than that. I had conversations with them. But at the end of the day, every conversation I had with one person in particular, he was just an angry white guy. And I kept pointing it out. I kept saying, oh, look, there's an angry white guy opinion. And he was like, I'm not angry, I'm passionate. And it was completely absurd, And I'll give you an example. This is a really silly example. It kind of goes back to what we were saying about inflation. So I was standing in the bread aisle a couple of weeks ago for 10 minutes in disbelief, seeing probably thousands of people over time will walk by the spot that I was on. So I was in the Meijer grocery store. They have a loaf of bread that is 40% smaller than normal size, bread slices or whatever. It was also a half loaf of bread being sold for $1.99. And normal sized loaves of bread all around it were being sold for $1.95. So I feel like if you think that inflation isn't manufactured to a high degree, you're a special kind of idiot. Because, looking at that, who in their right mind would buy that? But I went there again today and I saw that people had bought this fucking bread. I could not believe it. Another example. Tracy and I went out to eat. We go to local restaurants. We don't even go to fast food restaurants anymore. So we go to this African restaurant that we love near where I live, and we spent $38, including tip. Okay, so we spent $38. It was an amazing meal. Okay, this is a nice place to eat. Okay, I go to Subway, $15 for a foot long. That's smaller now. It's like, how is this not something that other people are noticing? Me and Tracy can eat for the same price at a decent restaurant that has healthy food that tastes way better, and the prices have not changed from before the pandemic to now, but Subway is $15 with foot-long subs. I can almost put my hand completely around the bread at Subway, and I'm only 5'8", 5'9". Okay, I'm not this huge guy. I mean, I just think that these kinds of things happen, and the MAGA people are like, oh no, Joe Biden's making the economy crash. It's if there's things you can go look at that he's not done anything to make it crash. It's manufactured by billionaires by raising prices so that we have to pay more and they can blame the president.
Isn't it ironic that the people that are raising the prices and causing where inflation are the millionaires and billionaires who are on the right-wing side? So all these people, if they really feel, the person who is my enemy is the person who's making me pay 6 cents more for bread, they're really in their own camp, but they're never going to admit that. And it struck me the other day, and Veg, I'm going to turn to you a few times tonight, because again, we're looking at you from kind of an outside view. I mean, you're very much, like you said, Canada's involved too, but I always find it interesting. And Ryan, you were talking about this too, the idea of social media. Do you realize there's so many firsts in this whole election? Do you realize this is the first time in American or world history when both the president and his probably right now star advisor own their own social media platform? Trump has Truth Social, and Musk has Twitter X Twitter, whatever. Now, I spend an inordinate amount of my time on those to try to see and figure out, what the enemy does. I've reached a point now where I don't really get affected by it. It's beyond anything. So I don't get upset. I don't get, first it was like, oh my God. And I've learned not to read anything to Jude, my wife, because she just looks at it like, but they have, excuse me, they have the volume. And something else I was thinking about today, and I thought this was interesting. One of the things that the Democrats did, and we've done it for a long time, is bring out surrogate voices, right? Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Oprah, Bruce Springsteen, probably the 4 biggest in this. And it wasn't enough to do that. Trump is his own biggest celebrity. So we don't have anybody, and it's probably it's a good thing that we don't have anybody on our side that is that kind of a person. Springsteen's not going to run and he wouldn't win. Oprah, maybe, but so. What my point is, when you get a voice, if they have control of social media, if they can dismiss everything, it's almost as if everything Kamala tried offended them because it was what, she can't speak for herself, she's got to get a celebrity, and we have been kind of late to the party. If you look, and again, I'd be interested in your comments on this. Okay, I can name, and I don't follow I follow social media more, but I can name probably 10 to 12 right-wing commentators who've been on TV, have had the mic, or in social media now, and I struggle on the other side. What do you got? Colbert, right? But when he did the Colbert Report, many people on the right thought he was one of them. They didn't get the sarcasm. Stewart, The Daily Show, to a certain extent, Kimmel, to a certain, but so we don't know where.
Well, let me ask you this, Dave, and this is to everybody too, so it's open. Because you mentioned about Harris, what she's saying, but if there were two things that if you could focus on two major components to why she lost, what are the two components about her that you think affected the vote?
Okay.
I know I'm leading with this, but I want to leave it open.
No, I'll tell you my two. I think number one is me the other, did a very effective job of saying the economy was bad, Kamala Harris was bad. If you have any economic problems, it's her fault. That was number one. And I think the second thing was immigration. And I saw it a lot on what they pick up on, because I said I'm on there a lot. It was basically, this was the statement. She, directed by her, is taking your money and doing trans operations in prison on illegal aliens. So not only was it wrong, and I do want to say one more thing. Someday, maybe historians can look back and they can select the stupidest thing said in this election. I think the cats and dogs have to be up there in the top few. And if you'll believe that, and if you'll believe after the man who spread it secondarily, J.D. Vance says, if I have to make something up, I'll make it up.
Right, but think about when they because I'm going to ask both of you guys to chime in on those two things. And again, this is going to show where I'm leading with this. And I agree with you, Dave. Those things are immigration, really big. But
economy and immigration.
Notice where those people are from. And they're saying they eat cats and dogs. That, to me, plays into the fact that they are black.
No question.
So, for Ryan, for Veg, just answer as you feel. Two major components for people not voting for Kamala Harris.
That's
What'd you say, Chris?
black and a woman.
All right.
That's what. And there's a lot of racism, and a lot of people that voted for Trump are kind of macho guys. I mean, that's why they say that the Latino vote Latino men were voting for Trump. Which is shooting yourself in the foot, but
in the face.
In the face. It's definitely racism. Also, they're very frightened of their own sexuality, and I think that's why they're so terrified of anybody that's gay or trans or. And I had one fellow telling me, well, the Democrats are supporting a perverted agenda, and they're funding, like you say, operations for trans kids. Or what about the thing of, the Trump saying, oh, you send your kid off to school and they come back, after having an operation. It's just boggles the mind. I just think it's bigotry largely, but who knows? Who knows? There may be other reasons.
Well, you seem to be saying, Veg, I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong. You seem to be saying Trump's not the problem. The Trump is the American voter, mainly the middle class. But maybe I'm wrong.
No. I think Trump has given a lot of closet racists and misogynists and transphobics, he's given them permission to be their worst selves. Yeah. And I think that's the difference here. And of course, nobody is fighting back against the disinformation. So, and there's all kinds of things going on. I mean, the Russians have interfered in this past election in unbelievable ways. You look how many social media accounts are run by Russian bots. I'm not on Twitter anymore, or X, or whatever it's called. I have discovered a social media called Mastodon, which is set up in a different way where everybody runs their own server. And I found it a lot more intelligent and a lot less propaganda on it. So that's the only social media that I'm using right now, and I don't miss the others. I don't. There's no point in me reading comments and reading things that are just going to make me angrier, because I'm angry enough as it is. I'm disgusted. I'm beyond angry.
Can I interrupt you? Oh, God, I'm sorry. When you're done, I just have a question for you.
Go ahead.
And you should be angry, okay? I mean, but this may be part of the problem, Brian and Ryan and Veg. We're angry, but I'm not saying we should, but we don't pick up a gun.
No.
Or we don't even put out signs in our lawns.
But what I'm saying is, it's all, what's that old say, I brought a pea shooter to a, whatever kind of, to a gunfight or whatever.
Right.
And so what we don't have in our repertoire, I'm glad we don't have violence. We don't usually now, but here back to Veg and Ryan's excellent points about disinformation and misinformation. The right does not believe that. They believe that Antifa is armed and organized and ready to go. And I can say with absolute certainty, because I know the two organizers who began and are kind of running Antifa here in DC. And of course, it's amorphous anyway, because, but There's no way. No, they're not organized. They're not organized. So, but again, we have this side believing that, and I don't know. It's all, like if you listen really closely to Trump or the MAGAs, it's almost, they can't believe, or this is what I think, they can't believe that a person wouldn't do what they do. And what I mean by that is, well, if we cheat, or if, they have to cheat because we all cheat. No, we don't. But it's now. And one more thing, I was going to save it for another program that I do, but I'll put it out here. And I'm not trying to show you. Do any of the three of you know about anything about the Greek play Lysistrata? The ancient Greek play?
Nope.
1 no, 2 no, 3 no's. All right. So, because I once took one of the most interesting 5-day, 8 hours a day courses on queer theory in world literature. Lysistrata is a play Aristophanes wrote in ancient Greek times. And in the play, Sparta and Athens were always at war, and Thebes. And Lysistrata, this character, she got tired of it. She got some women together, and they came up with a plan. And the plan was this: they would withhold all sex from their husbands, their boyfriends, their lovers, whatever, until the men laid down their swords, because they said, you're all for, then it's sort of like, you're away, you fight, and and we lose our sons, the whole thing, right? So basically a peace movement. And it was a comedy, but it doesn't age real well as a comedy. But I don't know if any of you seen it. It's there. There's now a movement. I believe it's called 4B. I got to find out why.
It's called 4B. It's out of South Korea.
Right. I've heard of it. Yeah.
4B. And what that is basically women withhold all sexual favors from men because of this. Now, that's not really a bad idea, okay? Except the people who probably won't do that because they won't be on the MAGA side. And again, even there was a reaction. Well, let them do it. They're lesbos anyway, and this. So it kind of proves my belief that history does not repeat itself, but it does rhyme. Here we have, how many years later? More than 2,000 years later, we have a return of withholding sex. Now, the joke here in Washington, D.C., and it's not really a joke. Young, conservative, and of course, the two terms, you can't use conservative anymore. It's been replaced. If you identify as a conservative, you are supporting Trump and MAGA in and of itself. They're really having a hard time finding dates. And I actually was talking to them. I said, do you ever think it's about how you think? And do you ever think it's about your whole basis here is misogynistic, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I will say this, and I make it as a joke, but I have meaning behind it. As some people out there may know, for the last 4 months, every single day, I've worn an anti-Trump or pro-Harris t-shirt. That was my thing. I took it in the streets. I did it in Alabama. I did it in wherever I went, and here. Do you know not once during that time did any Trump supporter come up and talk to me? They would give me dirty looks. But you know who did come up to talk to me? Some of the most beautiful young women I've ever seen. And I don't think the fact that I'm 72 years old, was what did that. So I wish I'd known that earlier, because I would have come up with a really cool T-shirt and sold it. If you can't, not to the MAGA people, the other, if you can't get a date, or you want to meet a woman, who feels political like you do, wear this T-shirt. Half a joke, but half serious too. We have the new divide. It's really serious, guys.
Sure, you've got high school kids apparently walking around, the guys saying to the women or the girls, your body, my choice. I mean,
did you see what happened?
Yeah,
that was the head. I forget. But here's how you can strike back. Immediately, they traced it back to what's his name, Fresco. He's not the Proud Boys. Anyway, he was a founder of one, and they found his home. He lives in Florida, and they sent his address and made it like this is where this guy lives, and so they also took a Google map, put that out, and he's going, you can't do this. Well, you're suddenly upset. You play filth, and now you're upset. So my point, whether it's withholding sex, whether it's once again, right now, the women who are probably most affected by Trump's return are the ones leading the kind of the charge, and that's good. Maybe they'll be able to figure out something.
Dave, I want to go to Ryan for a second because I want to get yours, because I do want to go to Judy's post. I know a lot of people out there have been commenting about Judy Washington's post, but Ryan, again, two main reasons why you think they didn't vote for her.
Yeah, I wrote some more notes, so I'll answer a question and say a few things, then we'll go to Judy's comment because I thought it was a good comment too. So I think that people did, at least the conversations I'd have with people, they were dancing around the issue of not wanting to say it outright, but she's a black woman and the immigration issue. And I think that those were the two main issues why I think Harris lost. But yeah, I like the comment about permission. But it made me think of the idea that when people want permission to be themselves, like gay people, trans people, etc., they don't, in historical society in the U.S., get to be who they are. In the past, few decades, we've seen more and more people come out and try to be exactly who they are. And unfortunately, this main idea does not only apply to people who are, liberally minded. The racists want to be who they are too. And that's what Donald Trump has given them permission to be. And that's why.
Excellent point.
The big difference is gay people coming out and trans people and all that stuff is not violent. And it is not, gay people and everything, they're peaceful generally. And yeah, it's true. We're not taking up guns. Liberal people are not taking up guns, and we're not generally going to be shooting back. And what happens anytime when people with guns stand up to people without guns? Well, the people without guns get shot. Like, I know that in Germany, Nazi Germany, a third of the people watched the other third of the people kill the final third of the people. And if you apply that math to the United States, that's something like 110 million deaths that we're looking at potentially if we get to that point. Like, when it comes to enforcing the border, the only policy that will get people to leave is shooting people at the border. And I don't understand how we are not going to get to that point after the deportations. It doesn't make sense to me that they would be this anti-immigrant. And I mean, they have people who will cheer that on. This is what they want to do. They want people to be afraid of them and their guns. And I think when people vote and their candidate wins, especially in a presidential election, I feel like they feel entirely vindicated and that they were right. And I think that this combination of being right and that their hatred is correct, it opens the door for additional atrocities. That's that whole quote about people who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. That's why. And if you think atrocities are not in our future, I think, again, you're going to be very wrong about that. But, I know, I'll finish by saying, I know that I am never going to shoot anyone other than the person who forces me to shoot people. I'm going to shoot that person. Like, if they hand me a gun and say, go shoot this person, I'm going to shoot that person. Right. That is the only person I will ever shoot. I feel like the reason I don't need to have guns to speak about my ideas is because my ideas don't require bullets to back them up. And I feel like Republicans and all of these people know that without their guns, their ideas will not stand up.
Right.
So I just, my ideas will persist even if I'm dead. And so I'm just kind of done with it.
Well, let's look at this comment. Thank you, Ryan. Well said. Interesting comment from Judy. And I think if anybody has the right to make this comment, it would be Judy more than any four of us. She said, black man turnout was low. In African American society, having a black woman in charge is seen as demasculating. Black religious people called her a witch. Minorities are the problem. we're divided. Was that
I'm gonna
surprising to
jump on
you?
that. No, it's absolutely 100% true. I'm going to extend it. Not only is there that division of men and women in African American culture, which I feel relatively confident talking about, even though I'm not black because of my years in Bridgeton and watching it develop. It's also true and we mentioned earlier, it's also true in the Hispanic culture. It's also true in the Middle Eastern cultures, right? So, you know, that was a huge problem, and Judy's right on there. Now, how do we, so it's sort of like Brian. We've had some discussions over the years. How do you improve education? Well, now because it's so much of it is outside the purview of education. And here, how do you change thousands, hundreds or thousands of years of patriarchy, and it comes from the whites too. I mean, and I don't have an answer.
Another question I have actually for you, Veg, and I'm going to go back to one of your comments because we have emailed each other privately, and Ronnie and I have recently discussed worst case scenarios. We've talked about the one place we've always thought we could always go. Basically because aside from Russia, one of the places in my youth where I was in Canada because I played hockey up there a lot. Veg, I'm going to let you perhaps explain to Americans thinking that there is this safety valve up there in Canada, because I think there is a conception within the Democratic Party for those who are getting their passports that just like the plot against America, Canada seems to be the way to go.
I got my passport.
Yeah. Well, let's listen to Veg on this one because it may surprise you.
Well, we have had a big wave of immigration from refugees from Syria, from all over the Middle East, from Africa, and there's a huge amount of resentment against them. And the resentment stems from, I think, the economic conditions that we're facing. Our dollar has dropped. The value has dropped 30% in the last few years. We were at parity, and now I think it's somewhere around 72 cents to the US dollar. And so everything costs a lot more. Housing, and they did bring a lot of immigrants in without taking it into account housing. And housing is a real problem here. So any Americans coming up here will have a problem finding a place to live. That's if you can get past all the immigration stuff that you have to go through. You have to pretty much have sponsorship and have a job waiting for you. Hopefully one that Canadians can't do easily. So there's a lot of roadblocks for people who want to move up here. And things are not great up here either. And there is a huge MAGA movement up here. I mean, it's not called that, but my friends call it the Maple MAGA, and it's extreme right wing, and they're furious at immigrants. In my city alone, I mean, there's huge anti-Muslim sentiment too. And there was a fellow a few years back who ran over an entire Muslim family because they were dressed in their traditional outfits or whatever, and killed them. And when he was asked why he did it, he said, "Well, because they're from the devil. They're like, they're not good Christian people." And there's a lot of intolerance here. You've also got what people don't understand is that French and English. If you're going to live in Quebec, there's been a sort of Cold War between the French and the English for years. And people think that we're so liberal, and we are in some ways, but that's all going away. And this is what a lot of the opposition party that's going to be in power, they praise Donald Trump. They think he's wonderful. And I think that we're going to see a lot of the same ideas being promulgated here, because the same issues. It's immigration. It's life has gotten harder. It's inflation. It's not the same country as it was. When I was growing up in Montreal, it was during the Vietnam era, and we were actually taking in American draft dodgers, and they were allowed to come up here as refugees. Well, now that went away right after the Vietnam War ended, and a lot of the draft dodgers ended up going back home when Carter was in. But it's changed so much since I was young. I used to think I lived in the coolest city in the coolest country in the world because we were so liberal and because we were accepting of other people's views, and it was generally a lot better than it is now. And after the last conservative government, Stephen Harper, he actually said, well, you won't recognize Canada when we're done with it. And it's true, I don't. Of course, that's that we've had the free trade deal and NAFTA like you guys, and we've lost a huge amount of manufacturing jobs. There was an enormous Ford factory not far from here that was completely closed down, and now it's going to be replaced with an Amazon warehouse. So all these good paying union jobs are gone, and they've been replaced with really crappy jobs. And there's people here looking for scapegoats, just like in America. And the immigrants are an easy target for people, you know. So we're losing a lot of what our country.
And that's just not London, because I know that in Kingston there was a large influx of immigrants. So it's obviously it's been straining the Canadian government.
We've taken in, I think, 2 million over the last few years. So it's changing the cultural landscape, and people are frightened of it. They don't like it.
And Veg, the other thing, and this comes back to social media, if something happens, I was told this when I was working at the museum, it takes 7 seconds for any statement to go around the world on social media. And what that does, I think, too, is it means things that happen in distant lands. So you've got the speed, but you've also got the closeness. I don't know if you guys were following the trouble in Amsterdam, coming out of soccer matches and whatever. But I was not shocked. It was just interesting, the number of my Jewish friends that I know who were commenting here in America, because they're thinking, oh my God, not wrongly, that may be coming here, right? But here it's a double whammy. There it was the immigrants from Middle Eastern countries attacking Jews. Fortunately, I think no one was killed, but it's quite a bit of damage. The other thing, Veg, when you're talking about free and open Canada, I think in Americans' minds, they still remember, that we could cross. Fortunately, I had a deferment, and then when my draft number came up, it was too high. But I mean, you did and that was a great thing. And you're right. You're not going to do that. I've looked into it. There's no really country that really wants anybody else in there right now, including Americans. But could you put Veg on again just for a second, so I can? I just do want to take one thing. I think I understood you. You said something about Amazon and poor-paying jobs. Are you saying that Jeff Bezos doesn't need a bigger home here in D.C.? I understand that. He got a home. It's in Colorado, which is where everybody who's anybody lives, and so he got the house, and I understand that. I couldn't have lived in that house. It was too small. So he made an offer that his neighbor could not refuse, and bought their house, and then built a linkage between the two. And I think the last thing I saw, I believe it has 19 bedrooms. I couldn't live in a house without 18 bedroom. So I think it's a good use of money. Don't pay the Amazon workers. Just let Jeff get richer. That's all. That's just my thoughts.
Now, Dave, you mentioned something about you can't change their minds. We looked at the votes, and you and I have talked privately about the fact that, look, perhaps it's not even worth looking at what happened. It drives you nuts trying to figure out why this happened. But there's one thing I do want to ask, Dave, because of the complete change in dynamics of the votes. Do you think, and again, I'm not saying there is any, there's still any possibility of malfeasance in the election because of the numbers, or do you think it's...
No.
Or is there anybody of the four?
No.
In this panel?
I wasn't in any polling place other than where I voted early here in Crystal City. Having said that, I would stake what little bit of reputation I have left on these two statements. 2020 was the most secure, fairest election in American history, bested only by possibly 2024. Now, again, and this doesn't matter, but just everybody out there, and just when you get a moment tonight, or a moment tomorrow, just ponder for a minute. I think this says it all in terms of who we are. Let's turn this around. If Kamala had won the popular vote, if Kamala had won the electoral vote, if Kamala had swept the 7 swing states like Trump did, imagine what would be happening in America today. And there are some people actually that I've heard say, well, we should do the same thing. And I'm not one of them.
No.
I know we've talked about when they go low, you go high.
They may destroy themselves, and that'll be our next part of the discussion.
And that's basically, you're saying that. And I was having a conversation with a couple of people today about that. And this is my theory. Eventually, evil destroys itself, but the tragedy is all the people that suffer while evil is destroying itself.
Absolutely.
Let me see what Anthony has here. I had a lot more hope in 2020 than I did in 2016, but now I have almost lost hope. Anthony,
we're running out of time. He's right. At least people our age.
Well, you know what? But here's the thing, and I've had to. It sounds like, oh, you're so tough. No. I just know that for me, and I can only speak for me, not for anyone else, I am convinced that doing everything you can to stop Donald Trump, his people, MAGA, and all they stand and do, win or lose, you feel better about doing it. And I know there are people, I was talking to one of our members, I remember talking to one of our members tonight at length, a female member, before we went on the air. Excuse me. And she raised an interesting point. She said, she asked, do you think, she said, when I comment, do you think there's somebody's watching Divided We Stand, and they're making a list and checking it twice kind of thing? And I don't think they are, because you know what? We're too low on the totem pole. Yeah. Here's the thing. Will he single out Liz Cheney? Will he single out Joe Biden? He's attacked 2 people, one of them being Nikki Haley, and the way he attacked her was this: I don't want her anywhere around me. She can't be in my administration. I don't think Nikki Haley wanted to be in his administration. But that's him. I'll keep her out. So, and this will be my last comment for the night. I think it is hard, but we just have to sit back. And he has to make the first move, whatever that is, so then we can come up with a counterattack plan. Doing it right now, I don't think this time he'll walk across the street like he did last time through Lafayette Square. One last thing too, because I go up there all the time. I have friends up there. I've talked about it a lot. There's the grandmother did, I guess, grandmothered in 42-year-long protest at the White House. And as long as a person is there, they cannot take that down. It's like a kind of a, not a shanty really, but kind of a small tent. If he does that, small though it may be, it's easy, right? He can get the Secret Service to do it. That might be the first sign, because he'll look out he can look out from the upstairs window and see it. So I haven't had a chance to talk to Filipos, who's the kind of runs it now, but I'll be interested to see if there's been any talk about doing that. Anyway, Ryan, Veg, great to have you on. As I want to say, I had two really good people to listen to tonight, and that would be Ryan and Veg. Now, there was a third person involved, but they're just, I'm sorry, it's just not as good. What I would do, ladies and gentlemen, if you see this later...
How long has he been your friend, Brian?
What?
About a week.
Never. But I want to suggest one thing, ladies and gentlemen. If you're viewing it live, definitely wash your eyes out. But if you're not, take the corner, get some duct tape, put it across there, and you can't cut Brian out of the sound, but you don't have to watch him.
Okay.
When you were away for a year, we all watched Brian, Dave. So, we willfully tuned in to see him. So I think you're being a little unfair there.
Well,
Thank you, Veg.
What I want to say, what I want to say to that, Veg, too, is I go and see horror films, not necessarily because I'm trying to understand life better, but the fact that I think I mean, Veg, you're certainly entitled to your opinion, and I think it's very kind of you to say nice things about Brian. But I feel when you do that, I sort of look at you sort of like the way I look at Trumpers, as why? That's all.
Can I bring up something that's ridiculous in ancient history from when I was on the show a really long time ago?
Sure.
Okay. This is just mostly for fun. It has nothing to do with anything today. A long time ago, I called the horse trainer Bob Baffert a cheat, and I didn't trust him. And Gary Peacock, who I see is here tonight, told me that he had met Bob Baffert or knew him at one point and said he was a great guy. And I just want you to know, Gary, that Bob Baffert got nabbed for cheating. And he was not allowed to race for 2 years in the Kentucky Derby. So I'm just saying, I feel vindicated in that comment like 2 years or 4 years ago or whenever it was.
What happens, again, I can't thank the two of you enough because on a normal show, I have to carry it and then undo the damage that Brian does. And
I don't say anything during the show. I can't get a word in edgewise. How can you blame me? Cheap mouth, no shut.
I shouted it down 6 times. 6 times you spoke. And you know what, Brian? Take this in the way in which I mean it. Those 6 times were 6 times too many. I watched the numbers. Every time you spoke, the numbers plunged. Do I know it's cause and effect? No, but I kind of think it is.
All right. We're not worried about that. We are getting some compliments for the show tonight, which is really nice. I do know that my mic, I don't know why it was louder. I'm trying to bring it down, but those things happen. A few more comments here, Anti-Gaia. You guys see the mariachi band singing, "I will vote for Donald Trump." It's the funniest thing you've ever seen. I haven't seen that. The beast from the book of Revelation. She thinks
I think she was talking about you there, Brett. Ryan, are you going to be up for a few minutes? Can I call you, Ryan? I have a question.
She thinks he's the best.
You want to call me?
I hope she gets to
when we get off.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, I will.
Bill Clinton was caught too and was reelected. Yeah, I want to thank everybody first of all for showing up tonight, and of course, people in the audience. We appreciate that too. We appreciate the commentary, and we hope that we can continue this. Dave had mentioned to me or reminded me that Ecamm now is integrated with Zoom, which means it can originate from Zoom, but it's thrown into Ecamm, which means we can have more guests, which I think is going to be a really, really nice thing in the future. Dave and I will work on that, and hopefully
Yeah,
in the
and
near
you know what,
future we'll
Brian?
use it.
I was thinking about that. You know, you could do something and say the show, and we had like 25 people on, which you can do now, and then we had a special show where your friends, to be on the show, you had to qualify as a friend of Brian, and that would be limited because that would just be you. But it'd be worth looking into.
I got a big fan there, huh? But anyway, in from a serious point, I think it is good because, you know, we see these names in the audience all the time: Gary, Joey, Gaia. You know, we would like to have more people, but what people don't realize is that Ecamm can only handle 5 at a time, and barely at that. So, you know, you add bandwidth when you start adding. And I have plenty of bandwidth, but 5 is the limit. So you had one more and that would have been it. But with Zoom, you literally have a lot more. So we can do a lot more with that. But, you know, of course, I'm going to need some practice at it. But I don't think it's too difficult. And for those of you who
you're
are out
talking
there,
about using Zoom?
Zoom, yeah, Zoom,
For
but not as
for
solely. It's integrated with Ecamm, which I'm using right now. So in other words, there's a button. I can simply click it. It takes Zoom and it brings it into Ecamm, and I can use all the functions of Ecamm. But what I'm saying is the advantage of having the Zoom is Zoom can have many more people. So we have a situation where, you know, you have a lot of good commentary. You know, I know that not everybody in the audience is going to be particularly fond of going online and showing their faces and their home behind them and all that. But there are, you know, if you have 25 people in the audience, there might be 7 or 8 people who are willing to come on, who not come on, and we invite anybody who wants to come on. It's really not difficult. We simply send a link, you click it, and you're in. But the Zoom does uncomplicate that issue, and I think it gives a face to everybody because we kind of know each other, we commiserate, everybody, you know, we see people saying hello to each other, which is just a wonderful thing because, you know, there he goes. Wow, I can talk now. So, but I'm saying if we actually can put a face on it, I think that's nice. Again, we can't force somebody to speak. It's kind of like, you know, high school kids are traditionally afraid to speak in front of a class. But I think that would be a very nice addition to this because now we start seeing faces, and, you know, we've become friends, all 3 of us here, where normally if it had just been text, you don't get a feel for who the person is. But I know all of you now. I mean, look, we're not face to face in the sense that we're right next to each other, but it's pretty damn close because now I know who. I mean, over the years we've been friends. I mean, Veg, Ryan, we go back to the Reality Report, and that's a long time. You've seen me lose my hair and get gray, and well, you're not gray. Well, well, look, we've all we're. If you go back into, for example, for those of you who don't know, Chris here, it's Vegematics channel. Was it Veg the Aging Hippie, or what's your channel?
Veg the Aging Hippie is the name of the channel right now.
Definitely check it out because it's a wonderful channel and nice videos, around 15 minutes long, and just you need something like that to be able to chill. But we've seen each other over the years, and we're building up this portfolio of connection, and Chris had Chris Veg, whatever you prefer, had a great idea, and I think it's a result of all of this is that, you know, we have to bond together. We have to help each other out, even though we're all small channels. We can help. We can do at least this. For example, Ryan just mentioned about, I think, Ryan, you mentioned today on our Facebook page about boycotting. There's a great app here, which I mentioned in the chat room. It's called Goods Unite Us, whatever. And I'm looking at which corporations mainly support the Republicans, which supported the Democrats. For example, my local grocery store is ShopRite, which is in the Philadelphia area, and they heavily supported the Republican Party, a little bit to the Democrats, but mainly to the Republicans. Oddly enough, Amazon mainly helped the Democrats. So there are things we can do because, you know, we've been talking about, well, Democratic women shouldn't date Republican women, but we can also work with the pocketbooks. You talked about family, Ryan, that's a big factor, but the pocketbook, and when you start taking away somebody's money, they get their attention really quickly. And let's not forget, and I'm sure you all kind of know this just generally, is that 71% of our GDP in the United States is created by blue states. I'm not trying to put down the caboose that's dragging us along, but we're the ones that are doing it. You know, if we were all of a sudden to cut out New York and California, this country would not be the way it is. You're talking about a lot of different AI, you're talking about very, very sophisticated weaponry systems. You take out these states, you're going to lose. So there are things that we can do, and you can wear them down. They wore us down, and he's going to wear us down psychologically. I think your point, Veg, is well taken. You just turn it off. My father used to get pissed off. He used to hate George Bush. And he'd say, I can't watch this guy. Now, if he had been living now, it would be worse. Because at that time, he was the worst president, George Bush, but Junior or whatever you want to call him. But you know, I think you have a point, Ryan, with cutting off from the family. That's what I've done. One of my cousins said he wants to put me in the ovens. He called me a Nazi and a communist at the same time. And I don't know how that's possible.
That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you know, it's funny. I think I had to give a couple minutes here. So this is a vicious comment from him. And I haven't spoken to him for a year and a half. He keeps sending me these things. He said this, and this is the least, he's sent me more. I do not respond to this. He said, fuck you and all your communist people in this country. You're going to be arrested starting January 21st. Are you sick? Liberal fucking assholes are going to jail, and you are Hitler. You believe in the Nazi party. You're a Jew hater. You're not Jewish at all. You belong in the ovens like Hitler. Put the Jews in because that's who you idolize. Joe Biden and Harris. Well, I didn't want to say what he said after this. This was not good about Harris. So I'm going to skip that. She's Asian or some sort of Jamaican. Trump is ahead in all the polls in America. We know what's going on, and those polls on your stations that you watch and that you believe in and listen to are lying, just like you don't handle and can't handle the truth, Brian. You deserve to burn in hell. That's my cousin.
Nice guy.
I just love the idea of, oh, I have the truth. It's an all-merciful God.
And I left out some of the worst
This
things,
truth,
too.
you burn in hell.
Right.
It's not
Now,
a
look,
choice.
he's ignorant,
It's
but
a threat.
I refuse to, because he gets mad if I don't respond. And a year and a half, I have not responded to him, and I won't. And we're not having Thanksgiving with any of my family. We're going to do it with some friends. I get
After
it.
that, why should you? That's just disgusting.
It's disgusting and heinous.
It's again, I left out some things in there just because I just know it's proper to leave it out. He's disgusting. I mean, a lot of it's just him babbling, but you don't say shit like that. And the best thing you can do is just turn it off. And essentially that's what my father did with George Bush. And that's, I think, what we have to do with Trump. Because we know what to expect. There's no like, we'll give him a chance. No, we know exactly what to expect. It's actually going to be worse. So the best thing is to shut it down. Now, what can we do? We'll have to discuss that over the future. But I think we have a good starting point. And that is, don't watch him, Veg. 2, divorce yourself from your family. You have to have some type of core principles, and if it's violated, then the family member has violated that, and that's that. Now, my immediate family, no, I don't have any in the Weinsteins, any Trumpers, so to speak, but we're just a small group. But outside of that, in my cousins, yes, and that's why I haven't spoken to really any of my cousins in a long time. I just won't. And I can't. So you are not alone, and I'm sure your story, Ryan, is replicated and will be replicated the third week of November. It really will. I assume you're not going to see your sister on Thanksgiving.
I'll never see her again. At least not on purpose.
Right. I mean, I'm sure maybe at a funeral you have to show up or something.
No,
like that.
actually, no. There was a death in the family. I didn't go. I didn't go to the. There was a
Really?
marriage.
So
I
you're
didn't
that
go.
pissed off.
They all think I'm gonna go. They keep
Was
thinking
that
I'm gonna
because
show up.
of your relationship with your sister that you did put it off and did not go?
Yeah, it was her marriage. Actually, I didn't go.
All right. So that will definitely end it right there, because then she will hold it against you.
Oh yeah, I mean, basically, my entire family, they're all Trumpers, and the only reason I had
Are they all
been.
from Kentucky? If I may interrupt.
I'm sorry.
Are they all from Kentucky?
Yeah, they're all from Kentucky. Yeah,
Okay.
but they're all from.
Cast aspersions
they're-
on Kentucky. I just want to know.
Yeah, basically, my whole family's from Kentucky, that I would consider my immediate family, and they, I stopped talking to them 10 years ago for I did in a Facebook post. I stopped talking to them for many, many reasons, not one reason. Just kind of snowballed into what's the point in talking to these people anymore. But I had stayed in contact with my sister. I have two sisters. I had stayed in contact with her because she kind of seemed more politically aligned, like I am, like with me. And we had some good conversations over the years. I mean, I wouldn't say my relationship with her was like this perfect thing where we were meeting all the time. It was like one or two times a year we'd go have dinner or something and talk. And she told me the whole time that, the whole family voted for Trump, but she didn't. And the other day I asked her if she had voted for Trump, and she specifically said, well, you're not going to like this, but I vote Republican, so yes, I did. She didn't say she voted Republican for the first time. She said she votes Republican. And the difference between me and a lot of people is, like, I said this earlier on the show, I have autism. I notice patterns and I don't forget conversations. Mm-hmm. And I don't think she remembers that she was leading me on, because it's been so long between our conversations. She doesn't remember. And I just decided I'm not going to explain it. I'm just done. It was painful. I cried about it. It was the last line to my family that I had. Like, maybe one day, maybe they would come around. But at this point, it is just, I've decided to redefine the definition of family, because, Republicans are doing it, so I might as well do it too. My definition of family is the people I pick. So that's it. I'm moving on. I'll never see them again by my own volition. I won't.
Veg I assume it hasn't happened to you, Veg, but I don't want to say it hasn't, but is there a point?
It has, to a lesser extent, yes. One sister I have in particular, who's a great admirer of Tucker Carlson.
And she's Canadian, so why would there be any interest in him?
Yeah, well, Tucker has been up here lately quite a bit. He was out in Alberta with the right-wing
Alberta.
government.
That's where there's one.
Yeah,
province.
Alberta is Canada's Texas.
Texas, right?
Yeah, but I'm just amazed at how this one man, Trump, how much damage he's done to families, how much division he's caused, not just within your nation, but within families, and how many times is that story repeated? Is Ryan's story been repeated all across America? And it's tragic. But I guess it's no different than it was in the 30s in Germany. There must have been anti-Nazi people that
the communists and socialists certainly did fight against the Germans early on. Yeah. They did. And they paid for it physically, right? They were
Absolutely.
the first. Right.
Mm-hmm. And I'm concerned that perhaps I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to do this. Just have free conversation online. I don't know if YouTube's going to end up taking all our channels down because of pressure from politicians. It's hard to say.
It's interesting that you say that, Veg, because when I did speak with Dave on the phone after the election, I did just in a passing way brought up, I don't know, because we said we didn't expect this channel to go on this long, and apparently now we're really stuck with it. I said, we don't know how this will affect us. We're small potatoes. You and I, we've all talked about this. These are small channels. So you would think that because we're small potatoes, we're not anybody's meal right now. But it depends on how they work this out with Google and say, okay, we don't want to see this. Already, you see it on Facebook. There's certain things you can't say. As a liberal, like you have the slightest mistake with a post, and you're done. So we really
I've noticed the comments on my YouTube channel. A lot of them are being taken down, and some of them are just really innocuous comments. They're not.
Well, how do you know? I mean, because I don't really check the comments too much, but how do you see that happening? You look and it's there one day and it's gone, or what?
It just is gone.
I have responded to comments, and my responses have disappeared. I've had subscribers tell me they've been unsubscribed to my channel. I've had people say, well, what's wrong with the comment? Why did you take my comment down? And I never did. I don't generally take comments down unless they're hostile.
Out of
You
line,
know, and
right?
I don't care if somebody disagrees with me, but if somebody starts with the insults, then
Do you think
I
it's
just
because there's so many YouTube channels and so many videos? Do you think it's AI that they have an algorithm that knocks it
I
out?
think so.
Oh, definitely.
I think it's getting worse because of the AI, and who knows? Who knows what's going to happen now?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I think a lot of people are going to voluntarily take their channels down because they're afraid. And they're afraid of being doxxed, or they're afraid of being. We're entering into a period where we're going to see a lot of fear and a lot of compliance with MAGA because of the fear. You know, they're just people aren't going to be willing to speak up as
Now,
easily
you
as they
personally, I mean, again, I want to put words in your mouth because I don't think Canada's at the point yet that we are at. But I think you would assume to be pretty safe, or do you think Google would just say, I don't care if they're from Canada or the United States, they're going down?
Oh, I think it would be up to Google. I really don't think Google's had some battles with our government already, and they're not too happy. Um, yeah, they tried to. I think it's Meta, not so much Google, but Meta has banned Canadian news from their platform because our government was saying, well, you should give our Canadian media some money from the money that you're making off of it, and they refused, and they just blocked all Canadian news from going on Facebook. I don't use Facebook. I stay away from it I have for many years for a couple of reasons. I haven't found it very secure. So I don't know what's going to happen with freedom of speech and on online opinions anymore. It could end up it's all going to be MAGA stuff or completely boring YouTube videos about cats. You know, it's really hard to say at this point. We don't know just how extreme things are going to get. We don't know at this point yet, but I have a feeling it's going to be a shock to a lot of people.
I do see here, for example, this is again, I love this app, and again, it's called Goods Unite Us. You'll see here that Google, it's running a little bit behind with the broadcast. That Google has donated 85% to Democrats and 15 Republicans. They also halted PAC donations to the 147 Republicans refused to certify the 2020 election. So I don't know if that bodes well for us that Google tends to be
well,
more Democratic. I'm generally trusting this. I don't know. They say it's really, really fantastic, but I'm just looking in those kind of terms.
Sure.
Maybe there will be some hope. I don't know, because I certainly struck out election night.
Yeah.
And by the way, you mentioned, Veg, that you felt very bad for me. You had empathy for me. You had to actually go off the
on
line
election
because
night.
it's hard to watch. And you know, I am not an optimistic person. I don't want to say I'm a nihilist, but because
I saw the way it was going, and you were sort of going, well, there's still a path to victory, and
there really was at that moment. You know, looking at the numbers, I was saying, well, if we just get enough, but they kept staying the same way.
Yeah.
And then I just gave up, and then it was it. It was very depressing, you know, because you're there alone. I had a bad argument with some Trumpers in Louisiana.
I just stopped talking
myself.
to Trumpers.
Well, I couldn't help it because Dave asked me to respond, and I had to. I was very polite, but every single thing this one gentleman said was absolutely wrong. And then when they interviewed the barista, it wasn't a question of being wrong. It was a question that she made everything look bad. So I challenged her and asked her, well, what's going up in prices? And then she went off with, well, lumber's up 150%. You know, I didn't mind what she said so much, but the minute I asked her that question, they got upset. Now, of course, Dave fed into it. He's like my nemesis. He tried to make them go against me. But look, they did it on their own consent. They did it, and I felt like it was in the bar alone in a certain sense. And that's what you and see. And I was trying to be reasonable, and these people saw me as, and now I see how they can see us as the enemy. I mean, especially
Absolutely.
you live in Kentucky. I don't know. I mean, of course you're in Louisville. Or
I'm in Louisville, but I
you're
mean,
okay.
I'm not okay. I honestly, guys, I'm expecting people to come to the house at some point and see that I have D&D books on the shelf, for example, and be like, that's not very Christian. You know, the question is, are they going to shoot me on the spot, or are they going to say, we're just taking these books? Like, I'm expecting friends to rat me out for a meal at some point.
Well, what's happening? Can you tell us what's happening in the high schools in Kentucky as far as, are they part of that 10 Commandments thing at all that they have in the South, or no?
We
It's
have
not really
not
the
had
South,
any
as I- you
legislation. Like our previous governor passed a rule that said the 10 Commandments must be posted and blah, blah, blah. But then that's been fought in court and all this stuff. But they're constantly pushing for it. We just had vouchers to establish charter schools defeated in Kentucky.
Mhm.
Although with Trump winning and everything, it's probably going to be a moot point that it got defeated. But people here, like, the big irony about Kentucky is nearly all of the people here, except for in Louisville and Lexington, are Republicans or vote Republican. There's a whole big Eastern Kentucky block of Democrats that votes Republican because they're idiots. But anyway, the idea is the reason that Amendment 2 failed to bring voucher programs and charter schools into Kentucky is because the largest employer throughout every county other than Louisville and Lexington, because they have bigger cities, is the public school system. Mm-hmm. So all of the people who hate being on the government's teat or whatever are Republican teachers and such throughout Kentucky. So they don't want to have vouchers and stuff go in because it means they'll have to have a pay cut. But they're voting Republican because Republicans are good at making jobs and bringing jobs to the area. Mm-hmm. But the government is the biggest employer throughout the entire state. They don't look at this data. They don't think about it. They just, yell, haha, own the libs. And that's basically it. Like, I asked, there's two people that I know who I've disconnected from. They're friends, not family, or former friends. They're both older than me by about 15 years. I'm almost 40. And so basically I told them, I said, if you all vote for Trump, and religious people take over, like literally take over, are you going to regret your vote? And they said to me, oh, yeah, I would definitely regret that, but that's just bluster. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I don't think that it's bluster. I think that you all are, they're people that, if they knew that would happen, would not have voted for Trump. They just don't believe it could happen. And it's like, look at what happened in Germany. There's all kinds of stuff that they were saying that people were like, oh, that won't happen. Like, I think that we're in early stages of that. That's what I think. I mean, I don't mean to be alarmist, but it's like, there's a guy that I cut off. Most of these people I've cut off probably don't even know I've cut them off yet. But he is the kind of person that I have felt for the last 20 years of my life, that he is the kind of person that will turn his friends in, should we have any sort of religious regime in this country. He'll turn his friends in, absolutely. Like, that's why I don't mind being on this show. If they use this show to come hunt me down, mm-hmm. like, this show is auto-recorded and analyzed by AI whenever you post it on YouTube or elsewhere. Like,
I didn't know that.
That's how they do their filtering. Like, if we're talking about a bunch of, inappropriate things we shouldn't
even halfway through like right now, the process, I read my cousin's thing. They would pick that up and...
Yeah, they know that stuff. Yeah. So it's like, there's no hiding. Like I said, if you want to sneak people into your house and have a secret room in your basement, they can look at a satellite at your house for 30 days and see at some point 6 people went in your house and only 2 ever left after that. And 4 people never left. They know that. And Elon Musk controls those satellites.
And by the way, there's a comment here from Anti-Guy. It says, it's just a rumor, so I'm not saying this is true. is that Musk is trying to buy YouTube, because YouTube is the ball game. You know what I mean? Russia hates YouTube. I'm just wondering if that would be the last straw, because then people like us would have to think, well, what are we going to do now? Because now he's just going to shut us down anyway. We'll have to go to Vimeo, or I don't know where you go.
You probably go nowhere, because that would be the goal, is to go nowhere, not let it, like, anything that starts rising up as a possible YouTube competitor will just be quashed. You know, like I think it all comes down to billionaires feel more comfortable when dictators are in charge, because things are more stable in a dictatorship for the ruling class. That's it.
Guys, I don't know if you guys are religious, but I do want to have a response. I can't respond to this one, but I want to, you respond to Anthony. Is it wrong for a Christian to feel anger toward Trump, or do you think God holds it against me?
Let's see. Is it wrong for a Christian to feel anger towards Trump, or do you think God holds it against me? Oh, I see. I am not religious, but I think that if a person believes in God, I don't think that feeling anger towards Trump is wrong, because, again, if your ideas do not require bullets to be upheld, you are probably on the right side of history. And I don't think, and I mean, the Ten Commandments, it very clearly states, don't kill people, thou shalt not murder. It very clearly states that if you're going to be a Christian who follows the New Testament. If you're a Christian who follows the Old Testament, God killed 2.4 million people. Hitler killed 2.7 million people. So
yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it's like God killed a lot more than Satan. You know what I mean?
If you don't count the flood. Yeah, I think Satan killed he killed one person in the Bible.
Person.
I think I can't remember how many.
Big difference, right? So you wonder who the bad guy is,
right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like if you count the flood, God killed around
that guy now.
Yeah, the funny thing about the flood idea, if you consider God killed 20 to 30 million people, including the flood, then you look at the Mongols, who killed something like 75 million to 100 million people with the invention of the short bow. So it's like there are already people who've done way worse than God. And it's like, if you're on the side of history that required bullets, it's almost always the case that you are on the wrong side of history. So anybody that feels religious pressure to believe in Trump should understand that his ideas require bullets to stand up. Why do you think all the racists have been closet racists for all these years? Because it was not okay. And they were not empowered to just go shoot people in the streets. Now they might end up being empowered to do that. I think it's going to start at the border, personally. Like, they're going to deport people, and then they're going to say, hey, the only way we can keep you out is by shooting you. Otherwise, you're just going to keep sneaking in. So they're going to shoot people. And I think that's where it'll start. That and or the detention centers that they want to set up to put all the immigrants in.
Well, the detention centers are more of a concern, I think, because they're going to find it's too expensive to deport 10, 11 million people. There might be an easier final solution. Maybe I'm totally off base and paranoid here, but I can see that these things have happened in history, and I don't think that morally we've progressed all that much as a species to not do it again. And maybe that's the worst case scenario, that there will be a Holocaust. And there's certainly enough hateful people that would go along with it. It's frightening. It's maybe I'm just paranoid, but I'm certainly glad I'm at an age where I'm not going to be around all that much longer, so I might miss the worst of it. So I don't know. I don't know if it's possible to carry out a genocide in North America anymore. I don't think it ever was possible, but it might be now, and I think it's something we've got to take into consideration. No, Trump is not a Christian, Judy. Far from it. Yeah. Love your neighbor as yourself. Welcome the stranger. There's nothing to do with Christianity. What MAGA is, and it has nothing to do with religion. I think it's just the people using their religion to justify their hatred.
But he certainly has co-opted Christianity. That's
yeah, and especially the evangelical churches. I mean, you see these guys that are like rolling in the cash sent in by suckers, and they're pro-Trump like you wouldn't believe, and they're, you know, Democrats are communists and fascists. Well, I don't know how you can be both at the same time, but
Well, I've been accused of both, as you clearly heard.
yeah,
Yeah, you can be both if the accuser doesn't understand the difference. That's the only way.
yeah.
Right, absolutely.
Well, that's the insane thing. I've heard Trump saying, you know, oh, our enemies are the radical communists and socialists and Nazis and fascists. Well, how can you be all of those things? It's not possible. Anyway, I am going to have to call it a night.
We are going to shut down. We are going to shut down. So
yeah,
let me just finish by saying I do really appreciate you coming on, and I want you guys on as regularly as possible. I don't know that I want to be attacked by Dave every night like the last couple times, but
I am fine to go on more. I just need at least 1 day's notice in most cases. Today I was
generally
doing
do that.
nothing.
I can just tell you for right now, unless something changes, Sunday nights at 8 o'clock. I can't go on too late because I have to go to school in the morning, and I don't like a 9 o'clock show because it goes.
Yeah, Sunday at 8 is fine with me, actually, in general.
Yeah, it works for me too.
All right, I'm going to try to get T-Bone, and this way, once I get Zoom going, Paul and everybody, it'll work out a lot better. But I have to get that down. Sorry about the mic, folks. I don't know what happened. I don't know if I accidentally turned something up, but I think I have it under control. Better late than never. Thank you to everybody: Judy, Paul, Tamara, Global Solidarity, Bella, Judy. Just, you know, we are. It's a small coterie of friends, but it's wonderful having you all here, and I want it to continue. And again, we have, as I said, there's no monetization. We're not in anything but doing the right thing, and I'm just trying to facilitate this. I don't think of anything else but that. So I think the last comment, since I'll have a word about Dave, was Gary's. Dave bored more to death than Satan in any manner. I think that'll work. So Gary's like kryptonite to Dave. So, all right, gentlemen, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll see you next Sunday, and I'll see if I can get Zoom together, and then we can get more than 5. I'm going to get Ronnie on too. She was very upset. She wanted to be on, but it's devastated her. So we'll talk on Sunday. And so from London, Ontario, and Louisville, Kentucky, from Bridgeton, New Jersey, we're going to sign out. Thank you, everybody, and try to enjoy your night and turn off Trump. And don't go to Thanksgiving with your Trumper family. See ya.